I think one barrier is that many young people, at least, and people in general, do not really know what peatlands are. There are many who call for example, reforestation as a nature-based solution to climate change, and a lot of the imagery around these kind of movements is to do with trees and green and leaves rather than wet and peat and moss. And we've seen governments and organisations respond to this with various pledges of X amount of trees to be planted in Y amount of time. But perhaps there's not such a public focus on peatlands and wetlands because of this sort of perception of them. And so government pledges aren't so ambitious to kind of follow step with that. In terms of enablers, at Repeat, the youth-led group I'm a part of, we think the rich cultural history and the sort of holistic nature of peatlands and their interdisciplinary sort of potential, and how they kind of raise these sort of deeper questions, can really enchant people to their value. At least that's how we felt when we first became aware of them. And I just think even just the awareness of the prevalence of peatlands. I live near to a nature reserve, which I visited hundreds of times as a child growing up. And it was only relatively recently that I realised part of it was a peatland. And having realised that, I felt a much greater appreciation and connection to these ecosystems, and could sort of assign that kind of value and understand really and appreciate how amazing these places are. And I think if people can see and experience peatlands, and be educated about their climate and ecological significance, and I guess that's a case of greater outreach and education and facilitating more people to be able to access peatlands recreationally. I think that decision makers will then feel the pressure to design policy which treats these places with the value that the public assigns to them. And so what about gaps? Well, I think a big gap, and it feeds into what I've just been talking about, is that how the carbon sequestering capabilities of peatlands are not included in national accounting. And I think the relative ease with which you can do this for trees is one of the reasons why they have this immense power in the minds of the public and of policymakers, because I really think people are aware of the climate emergency and the urgency of it, and really want to support solutions to it in any way they can. But the difficulty is that assigning of value to peatlands because of the difficulty of putting a number on it. And so it's difficult for people to see quantitatively how they're going to act as a solution. And I think if there are effective accounting methods, then the public can more easily assign value to peatlands, and policymakers can more effectively ensure that they are in good health.